My fiancé, Song, publicly called off our engagement at our family banquet. The way he looked at me was as if I were some kind of filth. Shunning lives up to her name, dull and stiff, as stifling as being stuck in a swamp. She's no match for me at all. My heart belongs to Su-won, daughter of the magistrate of Chang'an County. Only Wonner understands my disdain for officialdom, my lifelong yearning for mountains and rivers. This life, I only wish to be a contented salt merchant, traveling the world's mountains and rivers with Wonner. I laughed upon hearing this. A contented salt merchant? Song, a greenhorn youth, only obtained his salt license through my father's connections and the Prince of Pingshi's influence, an exceptional favor granted by the court. After the salt shop officially opened, my father even sent our household steward to assist him, teaching him step by step until the business finally got on its feet. It was because of me that he became a happy salt merchant. I'll be damned if I don't see how he plans to travel the mountains and rivers with his Wonner without me. Seeing Song determined to break off the engagement, Mother couldn't help but feel aggrieved for me. She trembled with rage at Song, shielding me, still dazed, behind her as she thundered at him, "Since you put it that way, I shall ask you a few questions. Answer them properly. First, was it you who came to my Xianping Marquis mansion to propose marriage, of your own free will? Did the vow one life, one world, one couple truly come from your lips?" Song opened his mouth, but under my mother's piercing glare, his evasive words froze. Only a stammered yes escaped. Second, during this engagement with Shunning, you've reaped considerable benefits from her, haven't you? Now that you feel your wings have grown strong and you need nothing more, you propose annulling the marriage? Song's face instantly turned liver red, a complex blend of shame, grievance, resentment, and rage. Song's face instantly flushed a deep crimson, a tangled mess of shame, resentment, frustration, and rage. Marquise. Everything I have today is through my own hard work. It's true Shunning introduced me to the Prince of Pingxi, which helped me become a salt merchant in the capital. But she only introduced us. Everything after that, I built step by step with my own hands. Song's gaze swept past his mother to land on me, his expression thick with disappointment. "So in your eyes, I'm nothing but a failure? All this I achieved through sheer determination, yet you see none of it, only the Prince of Pingxi, is that it? To be so blind to right and wrong, how could you possibly deserve the title of the capital's most talented woman? Ungrateful wretch!" My mother flared at Song's words. "If that's how you feel, there's no need to ask any further questions. If you want to call off the engagement, then call it off. Return everything you gained through Shunning. That includes the marriage contract and anything else you shouldn't have gotten." I knew Mother was furious. Beyond the marriage contract and a few possessions, Song couldn't reclaim anything else. How could he return the connections I'd introduced him to? The official permits already processed, like the salt license, were irreversible. Song knew this well, his face twisted with scorn and contempt. "See? This is the true face of the Xianping Marquis household. When you needed me, I was perfect. Now that I'm useless, you want to crush me with the Marquis' power? Well, I'm afraid I've disappointed you. Everything I possess today, I earned myself." What? Does this vast marquisate covet my meager profits from salt trading? How laughable! Shunning, so you're this petty and small-minded? Not a trace of remorse over the broken engagement remained on Song's face. He seemed convinced he was the victim, the one being exploited and oppressed by my Xianping Marquisate. But our dynasty's salt trade routes have always been controlled by the imperial court. Major salt merchants only secured salt licenses after years of scrutiny and by pledging family assets as collateral. It was only through my father's connections and the Prince of Pingshi's influence that the court made an exception for him. After his salt shop officially opened, my father even dispatched our household steward to assist him, teaching him step by step until the business finally stabilized. That salt merchant title? We placed it upon his head. Mother pulled me close, taking a deep breath. Now you claim my Marquis of Xianping household bullies others with its power. Why didn't you speak up when you were bullying others using my household's influence? When you applied for that salt license, didn't you know full well whether your own standing was sufficient? And the salt shop's operations? You couldn't even manage properly within the Imperial Guard. Do you think your salt business would run this smoothly without my household steward regularly managing your accounts and teaching you how to operate it? Shin Songqing's face turned ashen, a mix of fury and hysteria. Ha! Absolutely ridiculous. Do you think the Xianping Marquis household is the only powerful one in the entire realm? That no one else is capable? No matter what you say, I'm calling off this marriage. If you're not afraid of the capital's people laughing at you, go ahead and try to take the salt shop. Shin Songqing was possessed, recklessly tearing apart their relationship. Having grown up alongside him, I knew his deepest vulnerabilities. He loathed being called incompetent, accused of riding my family's coattails to power. My mother's words ripped open the darkness he'd hidden for years, exposing it to the crowd, to the sunlight. You ungrateful son, how dare you! The Marquis of Jing'an had risen and fallen in court, ending up idle at home. He knew all too well the hardship of having no backing in the capital's vortex of power. That's why he fiercely opposed Shin Songqing breaking off the engagement, unwilling to antagonize my father. A marriage decreed by parents and arranged by matchmakers, how dare you speak of breaking it off? I refuse to consent. If you dare to renege, I'll break your legs. Unfazed by the Earl's authority, Shin Songqing defiantly retorted, if I dare raise this matter in such a setting, I must annul the betrothal. Break my legs? Even death won't stop me from rejecting this ghost marriage. Smack! The Earl's hand struck Shin Songqing's face. Father and son stood red-faced and stubborn, neither yielding. Be honest, is there someone else in your heart? As they froze, I stepped out from behind my mother and asked. Shin Songqing froze at my question, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. He dared not meet my eyes, only his throat moved. The Earl and Countess of Jing'an also looked guilty. Clearly, they had known about this all along and kept it hidden. What kind of person is she? I asked again. At the mention of the woman in his heart, Shin Songqing's furious face softened into a warm smile. She's wonderful, skilled in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. She's gentle and kind. Most importantly, she understands me. She knows what's in my heart. She never forces me to do things I dislike. She knew at a glance that I disliked Gu Chongzhen's paintings and preferred Gu Minzhong's. You still don't know these things, do you? She understands I have no heart for officialdom, knows my lifelong yearning for mountains and rivers. All I wish is to be a contented salt merchant, traveling the world's rivers and mountains. You didn't know that either, did you? Shunning, perhaps others see you as perfect in every way, but in my heart, you and she are worlds apart. My heart felt heavy, as if crushed by a mountain, leaving me breathless. Shin Songqing and I grew up together, playing by lakes and streams, hiking through mountains and fields. Years of friendship had long convinced me he would be my husband for life. To say I wasn't sad would be a lie. Yet I was also intensely curious, what kind of woman could make him speak so disparagingly of me while praising her? What made him cherish her so tenderly? Hearing you harbor two hearts, I come to sever our ties. I, Song Shunning, have never been one to cling to the past. Then let us annul the engagement. Mother, return the marriage contract and all related items. Let us settle this cleanly. We shall not take a single copper coin from the Earl's household, nor shall we allow others to take a single copper coin from us. The faces of the Earl and Countess of Jing'an turned ashen. They tried to speak on Shin Songqing's behalf, but my father gave them no chance, driving them from the estate. Mother looked at me with concern. She knew Shin Songqing's place in my heart and feared his words had wounded me. I reassured her it was fine. I wanted to see just how successful Shin Songqing would become without me. News of Shin Songqing breaking off our engagement spread like wildfire throughout the capital. Rumors swirled, most of them unkind to me. Mother suggested I stay at the country estate for a while. With my luggage packed, I stood at the threshold, unable to take that first step of escape. I couldn't understand, I hadn't done anything wrong, so why must I hide away, too ashamed to show my face, while Shin Songqing could continue living freely in the capital? The annulment was legal, but my hiding away felt unjust. When I voiced my confusion, Mother embraced me and wept bitterly, blaming herself and father for misjudging Shin Songqing. She said this world is inherently harsh on women, but if I could become an unbreakable bamboo, she would stand by me. Thus, mother sent me to attend the birthday banquet of the Dowager of the Anyang Marquis. I arrived at the banquet in full regalia. Yet no amount of splendor could mask my inner turmoil. Fear of strangers' strange glances and whispers made me clench my handkerchief. Upon entering the Marquis's residence, my friends greeted me with extraordinary warmth. Not a word was spoken of my broken engagement. Instead, they went out of their way to cheer me up. My heart grew warm, and the gloom that had weighed on me for days finally lifted. The Marquis of Anyang's granddaughter, Susu, took my hand. "You finally called off that engagement." "I told you." "What kind of man was he?" "A failure at everything." "He was never worthy of you." "Good riddance." "Rest assured, with me here, no one dares gossip about you." My heart, which had been in constant suspense, finally settled. We had barely taken our seats when word came: the Prince of Pingxi had arrived. Susu pulled me up to greet him, her expression grave, as if his arrival had taken her by surprise. "Didn't invite him?" I asked. Susu shook her head softly. "Father doesn't have much dealings with the Prince of Pingxi, and my brothers aren't close to him either." After the Prince of Pingxi took the seat of honor, everyone resumed their places. Before we could settle, a servant announced the arrival of the heir to the Marquis of Jing'an. Susu's expression changed. She glanced at me with a hint of worry, muttering curses at the household servants for their incompetence. I signaled her not to worry. Since I had come, I had made all necessary preparations. Shin Songqing did not arrive alone. By his side was Su Wan, delicate as a willow in the wind. She was the daughter of the county magistrate of Chang'an. Had she not accompanied Shin Songqing, she would have no standing to appear here. Spotting me, both froze. Shin Songqing instinctively shielded Su Wan behind him, as if I were some terrifying beast. Upon entering the main hall, Shin Songqing paid his respects to the Prince of Pingxi as usual, then sat down beside him with his characteristic familiarity. The Prince of Pingxi frowned at Susu's elder brother, Xiang Fan. "Is the house of Anyang so lacking in decorum?" Shin Songqing hadn't yet registered the tension, sitting there calmly, assuming some unpleasantness had occurred before his arrival. Only when Xiang Fan stepped before him did he realize, "Prince Shin, your seat is at the lower end." Shin Songqing's face flushed crimson instantly. He shot me a glance, as if I were deliberately causing him trouble. How ridiculous, when others humiliate him, he blames me first. I turned to speak with Susu, pretending not to notice his resentful glare. In such settings before, wherever I was, he was there too. Everyone knew he was my betrothed, so unless seating was segregated by gender, a place beside me was always his. He had never sat so far away before. Shin Songqing rose and returned to his rightful place. Elsewhere, he might indeed sit at the head, but here, his status didn't warrant it. As for Su Wan, she was seated even farther away. After what had just happened, Shin Songqing couldn't very well have someone add a chair beside him. The collective scorn of the crowd would have drowned him. Throughout the banquet, Shin Songqing tried several times to speak with the Prince of Pingxi, only to be either interrupted by others or ignored outright. Finally, his dark, menacing gaze settled on me, as if I had orchestrated this collective rejection of him. Only then did I grasp what Susu meant by "the sooner the engagement is broken, the better." As the banquet concluded and I prepared to leave, Shin Songqing and Su Wan blocked my path. "You deliberately made the Prince of Pingxi ignore me." Shin Songqing's tone was accusatory from the start. "Your Highness overthinks matters. I have no time for such schemes." I wanted no entanglement with Shin Songqing and turned to leave. But Shin Songqing and Su Wan seemed unwilling to let me go easily. They surrounded me, blocking my path. "Miss Song, the Prince's salt shop has encountered some difficulties. Could you help arrange a meeting between the Prince of Pingxi and the Prince?" So it was the salt shop causing trouble, how delightful. I asked with feigned interest. "Oh?" I recall when Prince Shin was at my residence, he swore up and down that his current achievements were entirely his own doing, having nothing to do with my Shenping Marquis residence. "What kind of talk is this from you today?" Shin Songqing's face flushed slightly. He opened his mouth, yet not a single word came out. Su Wan smiled cheerfully as she hooked her arm through Shin Songqing's. "Miss Song is truly relentless. You probably can't fathom that this is precisely why the Crown Prince wishes to annul the engagement. You've always used your status and power to suppress him, forcing him into this betrothal. Though he holds the exalted title of Crown Prince, he's been compelled to follow you daily, serving you like a servant. Now that he refuses to be your servant, you turn your back on him? Su-won spoke with righteous indignation. Miss Song may choose not to believe in the Crown Prince's abilities, and he owes you no proof. But as families with generations of friendship, when the Crown Prince has a request, especially given your shared history of pleasant times, shouldn't you show the grace befitting a noble lady? Besides, he's not asking for your help, just an introduction. Su-won wore an expression that screamed, "This is my duty, and I should do it," which succeeded in making me laugh in exasperation. Meanwhile, Su-won was completely lost in her own world. Besides, the Prince of Pingxi suddenly ignoring the young master? Who knows what gossip is being spread behind the scenes? At this mention, Shin Songqing's composure instantly returned. Exactly. The Prince of Pingxi and I have always been on good terms. For him to treat me this way out of the blue, it must be your doing, isn't it? Are you referring to this prince? The Prince of Pingxi abruptly emerged from behind the rockery, interrupting our conversation. Shin Songqing's expression turned slightly awkward. After a brief explanation, he directly raised his salt shop issue. The authorities suddenly came to inspect the salt permits. The ones I obtained earlier have expired. Your Highness, I was wondering. Then go and get new ones, the Prince of Pingxi cut him off. I hold no position in the Ministry of Revenue, such matters fall outside my purview. Shin Songqing fell instantly silent. He knew the Ministry of Revenue would demand a substantial deposit and require proof of assets demonstrating his ability to operate a salt shop, neither of which he possessed. Su-won, swaying her willow-like waist, stepped forward. Just as she cried out, "Your Highness," the Prince of Pingxi cut her off. "Who are you?" "I am Su-won, daughter of the magistrate of Chang'an County." The Prince of Pingxi waved his hand at Su-won, signaling her to stop. Then, to the servants behind him, he barked, "What are you kept for? Does anyone get to speak before me?" The servants immediately stepped forward to pull Su-won away, leaving her shouting herself hoarse. Shin Songqing's face darkened. He wanted to grab Su-won but couldn't risk offending the Prince of Pingxi. He turned to me with a pleading look. If I spoke up, I could salvage some dignity. Everyone would give him a little face. Unfortunately, I turned my head away, unable to see. The Prince of Pingxi's lips curled slightly, seemingly pleased with my attitude. He then addressed Shin Songqing with a hint of mockery. "I cannot assist you with your salt shop affairs, and I expect no further visits from you. Previously, I helped out of respect for shunning. Now that you have no connection to her, Shin Songqing, remember your place and status." The Prince of Pingxi's words turned Shin Songqing's face green. He'd never faced such treatment before. Those of lesser standing naturally respected him, while those of higher birth spared him trouble out of deference to me. Without me, he saw the world as it truly was, a reality his fragile heart struggled to bear. Unable to bear the shame of staying, he bowed deeply to the Prince of Pingxi and departed without a word. The government's inspection of Shin Songqing's salt shop for salt permits was my father's doing. His salt permits were arranged by my father through the Prince of Pingxi, so he knew their expiration dates well. Judging the timing right, he sent officials to investigate. The outcome was unsurprising. Beyond that, my father joined forces with several court officials to thoroughly investigate the Jing'an Marquis's past affairs. When the case files reached the imperial desk, the emperor flew into a rage, nearly stripping the marquis of his title. Because of this, the Jing'an Marquis specifically sought out Shin Songqing, demanding he come apologize to me. But Shin Songqing refused. He solemnly assured the Marquis that without the Shenping Marquis's household, he could stand on his own. Didn't His Majesty ultimately retain the Earl's title? That proves the Emperor never truly intended to harm the Earl's household. Once his salt business prospers and he becomes a major salt merchant, with the Earl's household possessing economic clout, who couldn't he influence? By then, even the Marquis of Xuanping's household would have to show him respect. Unfortunately, Shin Songqing's reasoning failed to sway his father, the Marquis of Jing'an. Having navigated the imperial court for years, the Marquis knew well that power, not silver, ruled the capital. Neither father nor son could convince the other. Left with no choice, the Marquis expelled Shin Songqing from the estate, hoping to prove to my father that Shin's actions bore no connection to the Marquisate. Life grew even harder for Shin Song-ching after his expulsion. He had to pay for his own food, clothing, and lodging out of his own pocket. Moreover, to prove his competence, he had left the estate with nothing but the clothes on his back. At this time, the salt shop also ran into problems and could not operate normally, leaving him without any income. The Marquis of Jing'an feared his wife might secretly support him, so he had stripped her of her authority over the household finances, including her own dowry, forbidding her from giving Shin Song-ching even a single copper coin. Thus, Shin Song-ching once again knocked upon the gates of my Xianping Marquis residence. Seeing I showed no inclination to help, Shin Song-ching clenched his fists, his voice strained with restraint. "Speak. What would it take for you to assist?" I gave a mocking laugh, feigning curiosity. "You have time to waste here? Why not seek out your friends? Have you no friends of your own?" Shin Song-ching's face stiffened. "They're busy. No time to see me." Oh, I studied Shin Song-ching with a meaningful gaze. He grew visibly uncomfortable under my scrutiny and shouted again, "Will you help me or not?" His voice was loud, yet lacking conviction. "I told you the moment you walked in that I wouldn't help. Did you not hear me, or did you not understand? You said it yourself, without the Xianping Marquisate, you'd manage just fine. Your salt shop is your own doing, nothing to do with me." Shin Song-ching froze, seemingly debating whether to apologize or back down. I couldn't quite figure out if he had backbone or not. He kept coming back for my help, yet spoke with such a loud voice. Standing there demanding money, iron-willed yet hypocritical, all propped up by sheer nerve. I pondered for a moment, my eyes darting. If he still couldn't see himself clearly, I might as well lend a hand. "The Imperial hunting grounds will open in a few days. Your friends will surely go, and the Prince of Pingxi will be there too. Why not go there and ask your friends?" Shin Song-ching knew deep down that everyone's busyness was just an excuse. They were avoiding him, unwilling to help. Seeing he couldn't get anything from me, his eyes filled with disappointment. "I knew you'd be like this. I never regretted breaking off our engagement." With that, he strode away. The head he'd kept bowed all morning finally lifted as he left the Xianping Marquis' residence. Humph. He's furious now that he realizes he can't manipulate me. Come to think of it, I should thank Su-wan. Without her, I might have actually married you. My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for Shin Song-ching to hear. His footsteps halted. "Please remember your place and status. And don't ever come looking for me at the mansion again, no matter what." Shin Song-ching clenched and unclenched the hand at his side. Finally, under the guard's piercing glare, he silently departed. The Imperial hunting grounds, a vast expanse north of Chang'an City, open to the public for a few days each spring, summer, and winter. During these seasons, hunters pursued released chickens, rabbits, and similar game. In autumn, however, the royal family hosted a grand hunting expedition targeting larger animals like roe deer and bears. This season was always a grand occasion for the capital's aristocratic youth. Though autumn had not yet arrived, the young nobles were already itching to compete and prove their mettle here. Shin Song-ching had brought Su-wan early. It was her first time attending the hunt, and he was showing her around the grounds. Su-su and I were strolling through the camp when Su-su spotted Shin Song-ching and Su-wan's backs from afar. She looked displeased. "He has the nerve to show up. And he brought Su-wan. This hunting ground is ridiculous. Any Tom, Dick, and Harry can just waltz in." I patted her hand, grateful she was sticking up for me. The royal family opened this hunting ground to share the joy with the people. Of course she can come. If she didn't come, who would put on a good show for us? Su-su was puzzled by my attitude, but I reassured her to be patient and watch. Sure enough, after Shin Song-ching showed Su-wan around, his friends began arriving one after another. Shin Song-ching then started introducing Su-wan to his circle. All morning, Shin Song-ching was covered in dust and dirt. Watching him get rejected in every imaginable way, my mood grew increasingly cheerful. Su-su gloated, "Did you orchestrate this? As if I had that kind of influence. I came today for one thing, and the time hasn't come yet. Just wait." I reassured her, urging patience. Shin Song-ching's expression darkened by the minute. By noon, his face was so stormy you could practically wring water from it. Finally, Su-wan grasped the situation. Merely appealing to past friendships wouldn't suffice, so she stepped forward to intercede for Shin Song-ching. Though the crown prince is currently absent from the Earl's residence, everyone knows that Jing and Earl has only this one son. How could the crown prince's position fall to another? When he returns to the Earl's residence, he will surely remember your kindness in supporting him during hardship and will not treat you unfairly. I raised an eyebrow, finding Su-won more impressive than Shin Song-ching. Su-won saw things more clearly than Shin Song-ching. In the capital, interests always came first. Feelings existed, naturally, but Shin Song-ching had never selflessly given to others, so he reaped no such rewards. Among the young nobles, a few from lesser families who usually relied on the Earl's mansion began to think more practically. Seeing this, Su-won explained even more earnestly. Standing beside Shin Song-ching, she carried herself with the air of a salt shop proprietress, vigorously promoting her establishment, its future prospects, profits, and more. After listening for a while, I finally understood. After my father withdrew his men from the salt shop, it now faced not only the lack of salt permits but also a desperate shortage of manpower. Thus, Shin Song-ching sought to recruit partners to help break the current deadlock. The salt shop's profits were well known. When Su-won extended an olive branch, some were eager to seize the opportunity. But how could I let them succeed? Seeing the discussion near its end and a smile finally on Shin Song-ching's face, I casually pulled Su-su past the group. Su-su and I shared a silent understanding. As we passed the group, she asked me, "What are these people gathered around discussing?" I gave a faint glance toward Shin Song-ching and Su-won, surrounded by the crowd, and explained, probably consoling Prince Shin. "Haven't you heard? The Marquis of Jing'an has adopted a nephew from a collateral branch of the Shin family. Word is he'll be arriving in the capital within days. As soon as he arrives, the Marquis of Jing'an will petition to have him designated as the new crown prince." Su-su's eyes widened. If she had been playing along with me earlier, now her very pores radiated curiosity. Really? Why would I lie to you? By the time we returned from the hunt, the imperial edict appointing the new crown prince might already be issued. Su-su's eyebrows and the corners of her eyes brimmed with schadenfreude. Oh dear, how tragic. Expelled from the estate and stripped of his heir status. His salt shop must be raided too, right? Heard the courts cracking down on salt trade lately. Many big merchants can't survive it, let alone his puny little shop. TSK Su-su and I chatted as we walked, but after a few steps, someone called out, "Miss Song." Miss Seong. The speaker was the illegitimate son of the Marquis of Juyan, a figure Shin Song-ching had been desperately trying to win over. "I overheard you two ladies discussing the Marquis of Jing'an appointing a new heir. Where did you hear such news?" I shot a sidelong glance at Shin Song-ching, whose face had turned ashen again, and explained with a smile, "The source is irrelevant. Once the hunt ends and we return to the capital, the truth will reveal itself." With that, Su-su tugged me away. Behind us, no matter what Shin Song-ching and Su-won said next, the crowd's attitude remained one of waiting. The news that the Marquis of Jing'an intended to adopt an heir from a collateral branch of the Shin family was too extraordinary. Within just an hour, the small camp buzzed with the rumor. When everyone turned their gaze back to Shin Song-ching, they scrutinized him with peculiar looks. Many were also curious, what kind of person was Su-won, that Shin Song-ching would abandon his betrothal to the Marquise's eldest daughter and wallow in the mud for her sake? Upon learning Su-won's identity, the expressions in the crowd's eyes toward Shin Song-ching changed again. He must be a complete fool. This time, Su-won's words failed to capture anyone's interest. No matter how she pleaded, only one person showed any interest in her proposal, saying, "Let's discuss it after the hunt ends and we return to the capital." Shin Song-ching and Su-won had no choice but to return in frustration. Unable to wait until the hunt concluded, though he doubted his father would act this way, Shin Song-ching decided to return to the capital to consult his mother. Before leaving, Shin Song-ching and Su-won sought me out again, both seething with anger. "You did this on purpose, didn't you? You're the one who made me come to the hunting grounds. What good does framing me like this do you?" Shin Song-ching gritted his teeth so hard I suspected he'd tear me apart if not for the camp's witnesses. I shrugged. "Why do you think it was a setup? I was clearly saving everyone from disaster." Shin Song-ching's teeth ground audibly, yet he could do nothing. He cursed, "Wicked woman," and dragged Su-won away. Over the next few days, the capital seemed to undergo earth-shattering changes, yet everything also remained the same. The court reorganized the salt trade, revoking many previously issued salt licenses and placing sales under unified government control. The benefit was that the government set uniform prices, so the people no longer had to worry about being unable to afford salt. The court also eliminated tax evasion by small shops. Small salt merchants without backing were all confiscated, while the big salt merchants, sheltered by powerful patrons, remained unshaken. Shinsongqing's salt shop was like a pebble tossed into the sea, it vanished without so much as a ripple. Meanwhile, the Earl of Jing'an's petition to replace his heir had been granted by the emperor. On the very day Shinsongqing's shop was sealed shut, he was stripped of his title as heir. The successive blows crushed his former arrogance. He wanted to return to the manor and demand an explanation from his father. Alas, the Marquis of Jing'an denied him entry. At the manor gates, he was barred by a servant. From afar, he watched his cousin Shinkongbo stand atop the lofty steps, clad in splendid brocade, a place once his own. "Father sent me to inform you, you have been disowned. Remember your place and never return." This was a phrase Shinsongqing had heard far too often lately. Already seething with rage, Shinkongbo's words ignited him like a lit fuse. His eyes blazing crimson, he lunged at Shinkongbo like a wild dog and landed a punch. "Who do you think you are, telling me what to do? Correct my status? How dare you speak to me like that? Don't you want to live anymore?" Shinkongbo didn't retaliate. The servants reacted the moment Shinsongqing threw the punch, pulling him down the steps. Two servants held down the furious Shinsongqing while another attended to Shinkongbo. "Your Highness, you're bleeding from the corner of your mouth. I'll fetch a doctor." "Who are you calling your Highness?" "I'm the heir." "You worthless servants, don't you even recognize your master anymore?" Shinsongqing roared. He couldn't accept it. That cousin he'd never taken seriously, the one who'd always had to look up to him, had now usurped his position as heir apparent. Shinkongbo, the moment he first laid eyes on him during their ancestral pilgrimage back home, he disliked him. For reasons unknown, from their very first meeting, Shinsongqing felt his cousin's gaze brimmed with hatred and envy. While everyone else revered him, this cousin alone held him in contempt, always wearing a sour expression whenever they crossed paths. Thus Shinsongqing had always despised him, never offering him a friendly glance, and never holding back when he could taunt him. Shinsongqing couldn't understand how someone as surly as Shinkongbo could have caught his father's eye. In his fury, Shinsongqing understood even less why his father could be so heartless, abandoning him without a second thought, offering him not a single chance. "Young master, please stop this." The servant restraining Shinsongqing pleaded, "It's the master's order. We dare not let you into the mansion." "What about my mother? I must see my mother." Shinsongqing finally remembered the lady of the Jing'an Marquis. The servant glanced at Shinsongqing. "I've heard the lady has been ill. I don't know the specifics." Shinsongqing froze. His mother had always been in perfect health. How could she be ill? Seeing Shinsongqing cease struggling, the servant released him and positioned himself to shield Shinkongbo. Shinkongbo, having adjusted his attire, remained standing atop the lofty steps, looking down upon Shinsongqing, who now resembled a stray dog. Recalling all Shinsongqing had done to him in the past, a faint sneer touched Shinkongbo's lips as he spoke with condescension. "Go inform the lady that young Master Shin seeks an audience. Whether she grants it or not, well, that depends on the bond between mother and son." After all, the lady of Jing'an Marquis was also enduring a difficult existence within the mansion. Shinsongqing waited at the entrance of the Marquis's residence for a long time. Finally, supported by a maid, the lady of Jing'an Marquis emerged to meet him. She had grown noticeably thinner, her pale face devoid of any color. "Mother!" Shinsongqing stepped forward, grasping the Countess of Jing'an's hand. "What happened? How could father adopt Shinkongbo and give him the position of heir apparent?" The Countess of Jing'an sighed. "Last time, your father had already secured connections to fill the vacancy. He was on the verge of returning to officialdom when the Prince of Pingxi spoke, and someone else took the position. The Marquis of Jing'an knew the Marquis of Xianping was behind the sabotage. He wanted Shinsongqing to go apologize properly, but Shinsongqing refused to listen, stubbornly determined to save his salt shop. Left with no choice, the Marquis of Jing'an sought another avenue and approached the Marquis of Anyang. That very afternoon, after Shin Songqing had gone to plead with the Marquis of Anyang's heir, the Marquis of Jing'an found himself before the Marquis of Anyang himself. The Marquis of Anyang informed him diplomatically that not only could he not assist, but most of the capital's powerful families wouldn't help either. They'd all been harassed by Shin Songqing and were thoroughly fed up. Now, everyone avoided both father and son like the plague. Only then did the Marquis of Jing'an realize that Shin Songqing had been swindling people under his name all this time, all for the sake of that measly salt shop. With his political ambitions dashed, the Earl of Jing'an concluded Shin Songqing was no longer reliable. Yet if the Earl's household failed to re-enter officialdom and serve the court, the title itself might truly be lost. For the family's sake, he had no choice but to take a risky gamble, replace the heir apparent. Moreover, through the annulment of the betrothal, the Earl of Jing'an gained deeper insight into his son. The boy was narrow-minded and impulsive. If he inherited the title, the Earl's household would surely decline. Upon learning his father's intentions, Shin Songqing slumped to the floor, speechless for a long time. He couldn't understand. It was just a broken engagement. He only wanted to live the life he dreamed of, hoping his partner would understand him, not that dull, boring, and arrogant song shunning. Why couldn't his father see that? Would his father rather prop up a distant collateral branch than support his own son? Shin Songqing was baffled, his expression etched with confusion. Surely this was all a test from his father. Had his father deliberately spread false rumors, even going so far as to involve Shin Kongbo, the person he detested most, all to force him back to the estate? The Marchioness of Jing'an covered her face and wept. Shin Kongbo is not your cousin at all. The so-called distant Shin family relatives are all lies. He is the son of your father's concubine. Back then, he dared not bring him home, fearing your maternal grandfather would oppose the marriage, so he sent him to be raised by distant Shin relatives. Shin Songqing's mind went blank. At this moment, he finally understood, clearly and profoundly, that he had been abandoned by his father. Truly abandoned. He had a son, yet he wasn't his father's only son. The identity he had once relied upon was gone. Shin Songqing suddenly felt his world collapse, leaving him dazed and confused. He forced his feet forward, even though he had no strength left. Gritting his teeth, he pushed onward, refusing to stop here. He refused to stop at the gates of the Jing'an Marquis's residence. The Marquis's wife watched Shin Songqing's desolate, lost figure retreating. Covering her face, she sobbed, unable to utter a single word. It was her senior maid, supporting her, who called out, "Young master. The lady is still ill. Won't you ask after her health?" At that moment, Shin Songqing's mind was consumed by thoughts of his position as crown prince being snatched away. He heard nothing from the outside world. As Shin Kongbo's identity spread through deliberate gossip, the fact that Shin Songqing had been utterly abandoned by the Marquis of Jing'an became confirmed. Thus, Shin Songqing ran himself ragged every day, only to be met with closed doors and nothing else. With no other options, Shin Songqing turned once more to me, his unwitting succor. He knocked on the gates of the Marquis of Schwamping's residence again, and as promised, I refused him entry. Shin Songqing refused to give up. He waited outside the Marquis's residence, blocking my path the moment I stepped out. Over the past month, he had grown noticeably darker and thinner, with deep dark circles under his eyes. Clearly, he hadn't been sleeping well. Seeing him in such poor shape brought me a certain satisfaction. "Didn't I tell you to mind your station and stop bothering me?" I demanded. Shin Songqing had shed all trace of his former arrogance. His expression remained unreadable, seemingly unfazed by my sarcasm, I remember. "But I truly need your help. Shunning, for old time's sake, please help me." I raised an eyebrow. "How exactly do you want me to help?" At my question, Shin Songqing's dull eyes suddenly flashed with excitement. He gestured wildly as he outlined his plan. He wanted to open a jewelry shop. Such a venture required substantial upfront investment and skilled silversmiths, neither of which he possessed. He came to me hoping I could lend him money or partner with him on the shop. He also knew I had connections with Chang'an's renowned hairpin artisans. His eloquent manner and the confident gleam in his eyes momentarily disoriented me. Was this really the Shin Songqing I knew? Even when opening the salt shop, he hadn't been this passionate, had he? Why do you want to open a jewelry shop? You should have some private funds from the Marquis of Jingan's wife, shouldn't you? A simple life should easily provide for your needs. Why must you pursue this? Shin Songqing flinched with embarrassment before finally explaining honestly, this shop is for Wan Wan. She loves beauty and adores these things. With a shop like this, she can wear whatever she desires. The profits will give her a life of abundance, far better than now. I suddenly felt a pang of irony, though I couldn't tell for whom. That day, Susu dragged me to browse the silver shop, where we happened upon Su Wan with a man I didn't recognize. She swayed her willow-like waist, smiling coyly before him. That hesitant, almost spoken manner, that coy demeanor, not a shred too much, not a shred too little, perfectly measured. Perhaps it was for myself. Shin Songqing and I grew up together. After more than a decade, I still couldn't compare in his heart to this opportunistic woman. I had let go of Shin Songqing as a person, but I felt deeply wronged for myself. Does Su Wan know all you've done for her? I asked. Of course. She understands me better than anyone in this world. Between us, words are unnecessary. A single glance tells her everything I'm thinking. At the mention of Su Wan, the tenderness in his eyes was impossible to hide. A cold laugh rose in my throat. I hear the osmanthus blooms in Anyang Lane. Care to take a look? Shin Songqing frowned in confusion. I don't even like osmanthus. Never mind. I've told you before, you simply don't understand my tastes. Go see them. I insisted. After you go, you can decide whether you still want to keep running your jewelry shop. I walked past Shin Songqing, who stood frozen in place, and left with my maid. Every year at this time, the osmanthus blossoms in Anyang Lane reached their peak. Their fragrance could be smelled from afar, making it a distinctive sight in Chang'an City. As far as I knew, Su Wan and that man's new nest was right in Anyang Lane. Though Shin Songqing didn't understand my intentions, he went anyway. Fate works in mysterious ways. I hadn't expected Shin Songqing to spot Su Wan the moment he entered Anyang Lane. Accompanying her was a familiar figure. Shin Songqing frowned, tailing the pair to an elegant courtyard. He observed the courtyard's layout, much like his own, exactly Su Wan's taste. His brow furrowed deeply. After pacing outside for a moment, he seemed to make a momentous decision and pushed open the door. Flirtatious laughter echoed from the main chamber, punctuated by familiar gasps. Shin Songqing's hand clenched and unclenched. He stormed into the room only to freeze in place at the shocking sight before him. Why? Shin Songqing demanded, confronting Su Wan as she scrambled up from the bed, her clothes disheveled. You said you wouldn't be a concubine, that you wanted to grow old with me. I risked everything to break off the engagement with the Marquis's household. I gave up the Marquis's lavish life for you. Because of you, I was stripped of my position as heir. For your preferences, for your future, I humbled myself, begging people all over the capital, even pleading before Shuning. You. Su Wan. How could you betray me? How could you? Shin Songqing couldn't comprehend it. It felt more incomprehensible than being abandoned by his own father. How could the person he loved with his whole heart, the person he'd given up everything for, betray him? Betray me? You chose him. Shin Songqing pointed at Shin Kongbo, who stood nearby, leisurely adjusting his clothes. She had to admit, Su Wan knew exactly how to strike Shin Songqing's weak spot, with pinpoint precision. If there was anyone Shin Songqing hated most in this world, it wasn't me, Song Shuning, nor his father. It was Shin Kongbo, who had snatched the position of crown prince from him. To have everything taken effortlessly by someone he'd never taken seriously, Shin Songqing's hatred for Shin Kongbo knew no bounds. After Su Wan finished adjusting her clothes, her initial fluster had vanished. Don't sugarcoat it. All this was for me? Wasn't it because you felt Song Shunning's pressure was too much, so you wanted to elope? Song Shunning comes from a distinguished family, possesses great talent, and is renowned as a literary genius in the capital. Wasn't it your own inferiority complex constantly telling you weren't worthy of her, driving you to propose the annulment? In that instant, Shin Songqing's face drained of color. It was as if a secret buried deep within his heart for years had suddenly been exposed, and panic and helplessness swept over him. His entire body trembled. He pointed at Suwon, his fingers shaking, unable to utter a single word. You claim I understand you best. Indeed, I know the darkness within you. Suwon gently patted away Shin Songqing's pointing hand and placed her own over his heart. I know your inner inferiority and resentment. But what can you do? You rely on the Marquis of Schwanping's household to run your salt business. Without her support, you'd be nothing. You didn't realize this before, but surely you've come to understand it recently? Without her, you truly are nothing. Young Master Shin, think carefully. Was it because of me that you were expelled from the Earl's mansion and stripped of your identity? That's a colossal injustice. I wanted you to be the crown prince more than anyone. But you yourself are so unambitious. What can I do? You know my father holds a lowly position with little influence. The life I desire, I must earn it myself. Unlike you, who has a powerful fiancé handing you every advantage on a silver platter. Since you've uncovered the truth about the crown prince and me, I won't play along any longer. Please, young master, accept your true place and live your own life. Suwon's eyes sparkled with laughter, her voice as sweet and coquettish as ever. But to Shin Songqing in that moment, her smile resembled a ravenous beast with gaping jaws, crushing him until he could barely breathe. His heart trembled violently, a raging fire ignited within that refused to be extinguished. Anyone in this world could call him incompetent, could demand he recognize his place. But not Suwon. Rage reddened Shin Songqing's eyes. His hands clenched at his sides, clutching desperately as if to hold on to his last shred of sanity. Shin Kongbo's lips curled into a cold sneer. Move aside. Don't block this crown prince's path. Shin Kongbo swept his hand, shoving Shin Songqing off balance. A voice dripping with contempt and scorn emerged from his throat. Coward. Those two words shattered Shin Songqing's last shred of sanity. The final remnant of clarity in his mind was swept away by them. Go to hell! Completely deranged, Shin Songqing felt as if he'd fought a battle of pure catharsis, unleashing years of pent-up resentment, frustration, and suppressed inferiority. Only when the storm had passed and his senses returned did he realize his hands were drenched in blood. Before him, Shin Kongbo and Suwon both lay collapsed in pools of their own blood. It's not my fault. You forced me. Yes, you forced me. You forced me. Shin Songqing's robe soaked in blood, he staggered out, fleeing without regard for his path. Not long after leaving the house, he encountered soldiers patrolling the capital and was apprehended on the spot. The patrol followed Shin Songqing's path back to Shin Kongbo's small courtyard, where they found Shin Kongbo and Suwon. They rushed both to the clinic. Fortunately, both survived their severe injuries, though they were lucky to have their lives spared. They were likely to become perpetual patients from now on. Shin Kongbo, in particular, was now a frail invalid. He would hardly be able to shoulder the responsibilities of the Xingxing Marquis' household. I learned of Shin Songqing's assault through the funeral notice for the Countess of Jing'an. Her passing was sudden, and only after careful inquiry did I understand. After Shin Songqing's crime, the Earl of Jing'an, seeking to placate Shin Kongbo, had no intention of saving him. According to our dynasty's laws, Shin Songqing would face exile for 3,000 li, a life sentence barring return unless a general pardon occurred. Yet such opportunities are rare, and the emperor enjoys robust health. To compel her husband to save their son, the Countess of Jing'an threatened suicide, hanging herself in his study. After years of marriage, the Earl understood her meaning. Her death would clear the way for his concubine, sparing their son's life. With renewed effort alongside his mistress, he might even father another son. Thus, Shin Kongbo forgave Shin Songqing. The Earl of Jing'an pulled strings to secure Shin Songqing's release from prison, allowing him to attend his mother's funeral. Mother took me to the funeral. I knew her heart ached. After all, they had been childhood friends, inseparable since childhood. What Shin Songqing did to me couldn't be blamed on her. This outcome was surely not what mother wished to see. At the funeral, I saw him again, looking even more gaunt than before. His complexion was ashen, dark circles ringed his eyes, and his gaze held a deathly stillness. No matter who came, he knelt silently before my mother's spirit tablet, saying nothing. I thought he hadn't seen me. As I was about to leave after offering incense with my mother, he called out to me. Shunning, I apologize. I was wrong before. Can you forgive me? So it was an apology. I nodded. Forgiveness wasn't the right word. I simply didn't care anymore. Seeing him like this now, I felt no satisfaction. He seemed like a stranger, whether he was well or not, it had nothing to do with me. Shin Song-ching saw my nod, and his eyes regained some light. Then let's start over. Shunning, we grew up together. The feelings between us are still there. I know I messed up before, but I regret it. I'll turn over a new leaf. From now on, I'll do whatever you say. Whatever you want, okay? I didn't break off our engagement because I hated you. It's because you're too amazing. I always felt like I wasn't good enough for you. I cut him off without mercy. You don't mind being a servant in my family? Your kids will take my surname? Shin Song-ching froze, clearly caught off guard by my words. Yet they seemed to spark a new thought in him. Moments later, his eyes flashed with immense joy. Yes. No. I cut off his elation. Right. Hearing him say that, I thought he still held some shred of masculine pride. But no. He was nothing. Don't bring up childhood affection. It vanished the moment you insisted on annulling our betrothal. Say no more. Save yourself some dignity. My stance was firm. Shin Song-ching tried to appeal to sentiment, but I cut him off. Didn't your mother's dowry go to you? Shin Song-ching hesitated awkwardly. No. My maternal grandfather took it. His release from prison was arranged by the Marquis of Jingnan through connections, but Shin Song-ching paid most of the silver himself. With the Marquis's wife's dowry confiscated, he lost his financial backing, left utterly penniless. It seemed Shin Song-ching had been abandoned not only by his father but also by his maternal grandfather. You won't get anything out of me. Give up. That was my final warning to Shin Song-ching. After that, he sought me out several more times, but I refused to see him. Whenever I went out, father dispatched numerous guards to protect me, ensuring he couldn't intercept me. After several attempts, he finally gave up on meeting me in person and resorted to writing letters instead. Unfortunately, the servants in the mansion dared not deliver them to me, so I never saw a single one. Later, I heard he couldn't make it in the capital and had left the city to seek his fortune elsewhere. No one knew where he went. Well, he had always yearned for the mountains and rivers, hadn't he? This was his chance to fulfill his dream. But a dream without silver to sustain it, I wondered how he intended to achieve it. Gradually, I don't recall when it began, but he became a cautionary tale in the neighborhoods. Whenever people spoke of faithless men meeting ill ends, they'd warn, don't go down Shin Song-ching's path. And when describing women as fickle and vain, it was always Su Wan's name that came up. I heard that after she was sent back, her county magistrate father refused to seek further medical treatment for her injuries. The medicine was stopped. Before long, Su Wan passed away. The magistrate wouldn't even let her be buried in the family tomb. They wrapped her in a straw mat and tossed her into the mass grave. When mother told me these things, she watched my expression carefully. Only when she saw I truly didn't care did she relax. Then she mentioned that the lady of Anyang-ho was hosting a flower-viewing banquet where all the renowned young talents of the capital would gather. Mother wished for me to attend as well. I understood her concern. She feared I'd remain broken over Shin Song-ching's death and reject marriage altogether. I clasped her hand in mine and told her earnestly, I'm fine. At the banquet, the Prince of Pingxi, equally resplendent in his attire, presented me with a painting by Gu Chongjin. This prince deems Gu Chongjin's work the finest in the land. The end.